what do you think some of the like reasons that we're seeing like is the energy? I feel tired. And so I am 36, going to be 37. I have like started to make some very hormone based life changes, completely doctoring myself with no lab work, just finding people on TikTok and whatever, and just being like, I have those symptoms. So great, great. But I look back to my 20s and I started a clinic, I had babies. I mean, and I just look back and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how I did it back then." Is like being in like aging what's contributing to it, or as a society are we seeing more fatigue? Like what is what's your thoughts on our society in general? Why we're seeing so much chronic fatigue?
Yeah, I don't believe it's aging. I will tell you the thing, of course we're aging, like, that's gonna have some changes. I don't think it's supposed to be I know it's not supposed to be as dramatic as it is. Like, I'm 45. I feel better now. I have better energy than I actually did in my 20s, you know? And I'm like, "Oh, okay, so that myth of just, you're just aging, and that's what happens
Mhm.
when women go to the doctor." I mean, honestly, even if you went and did lab work, the chances of
Probably your
you getting
thyroid.
yeah,
Here's some synthroid.
here's some Synthroid, or they just go like, "Nah, you're fine." And it's like a total gaslighting, and they're like, "Yeah, but I'm not fine. I don't feel well." "But you're fine. Your labs are normal." Well, normal compared to what? The general population who is also not healthy? That's not a good measure. These typical lab ranges are looking at literally the entire population who does these tests. So, like, what is normal? Normal is before I'm completely crashed and now I'm on meds, and basically what they're saying is, "Come back when there's a problem and we'll put you on meds." So, the reason that I think we're seeing an increase is, I'll talk about 2 things. One, just using your example of, like, why you were able to do all that stuff in your 20s and you're feeling the difference now. I think many of us who have this personality, sounds like you do, you're just like, "I can do everything. I can build a business. I can do it all." At that time, your cortisol is kicking hard because, there's a cycle of things. There's the sympathetic fight and flight when there is a stressor, and stressor is not a bad thing. Stress is supposed to be a good thing. It propels us forward. It gets us through those times in life where we are having children, trying to work, building a family, all those things. Like, it's not bad to have the stressors, but what needs to happen is you should have the stressor and then the come down. The parasympathetic should pull that down. Your hormones should rebalance until the next one happens. The problem is that because of modern life, which has just accelerated and increased, and there's no breaks. There's no breaks from anything. We are really expected to do everything all the time. Work doesn't shut off. Like, there's no boundaries. We just do all the things. That cortisol is always kicking. Your adrenals are always pumping, 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 and you can feel amazing during that time, on top of the world. That could last for 10 years, 20 years, because it's an anti-inflammatory, cortisol is. It's a
It is?
painkiller. Yeah,
But I
yeah.
thought that's why I have a trouble belly fat is
Well,
commercial.
right.
Those
I
damn
mean,
commercials back when we
yeah,
used to watch them from the
yeah,
early
yeah.
2000s, they've stuck in there.
Yeah, those they were very effective, and I'm sure there was a drug to fix it.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a painkiller, it's an anti-inflammatory, it will keep you rolling, and you will feel high
Oh,
on life. But when you're riding that high
it's
and you're
like
never
cocaine.
coming off yes, it's a drug, and it's adrenaline, and then over time, when that is constantly pumping with no break, the levels start to come down, and your body can't keep up. It can't
What
keep
comes down?
cranking.
Cortisol?
Cortisol, all of the hormones, DHEA, because everything is feeding into each other, so there's sort of a cascade of, like, the master hormones, pregnenolone and DHEA. Those are trying to so DHEA is the counter hormone to cortisol. So
Okay.
what happens over time is cortisol's pumping, and then DHEA comes in and says, like, "Okay, now I'm supposed to counter this and pull it down." And it will. But then you keep pumping, and then more DHEA has to balance that, and you can see it becomes this vicious cycle. And at some point, your adrenals can't keep up, and then you start to experience adrenal fatigue, and things just start to slowly decline. The things that you used to do that filled you up, that gave you energy, they're not working anymore. You're starting to self medicate at this point with more caffeine, comfort foods, whatever you got to do to get through the day.
Mhm.
And so your levels now are just kind of bottoming out. So that's part of it,
Yeah.
is that people are experiencing actual adrenal fatigue and their hormones have just tanked because it was
Is
just too long.
adrenal fatigue a diagnosis that, like, we've really accepted, I mean, not accepted, that, like, the medical community sees? Because back to kind of the, like, "Well, your labs are fine." Like, what they're waiting, like, I feel like that's where adrenal fatigue is, and they're
Yes.
like, "Well, you're not at rock bottom yet,
Yes.
so
Yes.
maybe, like, 5 more years? Have a couple more kids, start a side hustle, run a marathon, then
Yeah.
I bet you."
Totally. You just hit the nail on the head because that's the point when things can get turned around. There's this graph that I use to show my clients of this cycle of like the peaks and the valley. And when you start to come over, and you're moving towards adrenal fatigue. And then after that, it's like skull and crossbones. Like it's bad news, like if it continues. But yes, they're looking at conventional ranges. They don't have any solutions to fix it. It just is what it is. It's aging and whatever. You're not at a point where you need medication yet. There's nothing I can do to help you. And exactly what they're saying is come back when this has crashed and then we'll give you medication and then we'll just like synthetically boost you back up without ever fixing any root of the issue, your lifestyle, your food, your gut, all these things that contribute. So that's one of the big things. I will tell you the other thing, that this is a more recent understanding of mine over the last 2 years, is the massive impact of our disconnect from nature and the very unnatural way that we're living because we think we're modern humans. We can live indoors all the time. You don't, I mean, I look at my own house and it's like I literally don't have to leave. I have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber and an infrared sauna and red lights and exercise equipment and whatever. I don't have to leave the house. And so a lot of times I didn't, because I was like, I have all the things to keep myself well in here. And I didn't understand that I needed input energy from nature to fill my battery back up. And that modern life is depleting it constantly. Blue light, EMFs, being indoors. These things are literally dehydrating us, draining our batteries. We're on technology all the time. And so it's a very off balance of not getting the right inputs to fill the battery back up. And the only ways that you can get those energy inputs are from, oh, this goes back to like middle school, electrons. Your mitochondria, which we all know about, are like the powerhouses, the
Power of the
energy.
cell.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. But they actually do so much more than that. They literally run every function in your body, every function, repair and rest, and they tell everything what to do. They're not human. They have their own DNA, they're their own organelles. They take their cues from nature. They get their information from the sun, from the magnetic fields, from, grounding, touching the earth, getting that. Those are the only ways to get electrons at all as humans are sun, water,
Drinking it or being in it or viewing it
being in it.
in the water.
You can be near it. So, like, if you're walking by the ocean, you would get an electron charge from that. So it
Okay.
depends. Natural
I'm
bodies
glad
of water.
you're already answering what I was gonna ask, is because I feel like so often we go like, "You gotta be out in nature," and it's like, what's the scientific, like, what does the nature do? So, okay, so it's like giving our body electrons,
Mhm.
which communicate with the mitochondria.
Yeah, the
Okay.
mitochondria have to use the electrons to run their entire chain. So they
Okay, so
use electrons.
sunshine.
It's called the electron transport chain.
I've heard that
And
before.
yeah, like we know these things, but nobody teaches
ETC
us.
is what
Yes,
I
yes, yes,
remember, but
yes.
where the hell did I learn that?
Probably 8th grade, and then you're like, I don't need this."
I do not. I think
No.
I remember like a little oh man. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna go find some memes after this. But
Yeah, it's
okay.
so incredible, and so this was just when I understood this, it makes all the sense in the world. We're mammals. We
Mhm.
can't escape that. We live modern lives, but we are mammals. That is our biology. We haven't evolved past that. Maybe in a couple hundred more years, our bodies will adapt and, like, realize there's some other way, but for now, this is how we operate. So you get the electrons. You would actually get it even from the shower, just water running over you. Grounding doesn't have to be super complicated, like feet on the earth, even concrete. You'll get an electrical charge, but put your feet in the grass, touch a tree, be outside as much as you can, you get the charge. It doesn't have to be for long periods of time. that's ideal, but it doesn't have to be. Little 5 minutes at a time, 10 minutes at a time, go, take breaks, get some walks. But the other way is food. So food is the other way, but food is getting that input from nature, right? And so then the only food that gives you an electron charge is whole food that has been grown in nature. So, like packaged health food, not going to give you an electron charge. So, when you realize the enormity of that, which is such a foundation, and you think about how so many people live their lives, myself included, living on a lot of packaged, even healthy, packaged food, not really necessarily eating seasonal, local, like really focusing on whole foods, not getting a sun, or if I'm outside, putting sunscreen on, covering up because they terrified us about the sun. And we were like, the sun's trying to kill us, which is not true. Not true. And not really getting any of that connection on a daily basis. I'm like, how was I ever going to stay healthy? Like, of course, chronic fatigue is going to kick in at some point. Of course, our batteries, how is our body going to recharge? It can't.